I don't know, I'm going to say that's totally accurate between here and the lower 48 is transportation and the way that we're able to commute because there's places that are so isolated that even getting an identification would be a monumentous task for, say, someone that lives in Kotzebue
Right.
or on Alaska or Unalakleet, these areas where you could literally only go in by plane, right? And that's with good conditions
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I'm really lucky. I've gotten to travel to all 50 states, and I am really proud that I checked off all of them in my life and got to see them. And the reason I could do that is because travel in the lower 48 was when I was younger affordable and attainable and relatively easy. All you had to do was save up a little bit and choose to do it. Alaska is different. And if you want to get from here to on Alaska, it takes a lot more planning, a lot more luck with the weather,
A lot
and
more
a
money.
lot more money. And when this administration decides we're going to make a handful of missteps to jack up the price of airplane fuel, well, that makes it even harder. And people who live in a place that you have to fly in order to come and go to other cities, for example, they have just had the hammer put to them, and it's time to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. So how would you handle how would you represent our needs to the U.S. government about these transportation issues, the identification issue of where people coming in to get identification? How would you mitigate that on the U.S. representative floor?
Oh gosh, well, those are some different issues there. But in terms of the identification, it's the obvious step there is that the SAVE Act had to fail, and I'm glad that that's not going to move forward. But I think we'd be foolish to think that's the last effort of Nick Begich and the Trump administration to hamper people's ability to vote. Voting fraud, you can measure how much there is, and it's a pretty low number. And the things that they're doing to try to stop it don't even address that fraud that is out there. Like everybody, I won't rest until that fraud number is zero. But the strategy of saying we're going to make it harder for legally voting rural Alaskans is just Nick Begich betraying the people who live in this state.
Interesting. That's a very interesting point. Fraud is a really big issue. Do you feel like it's been propagandized?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, all you have to do is look at the numbers. And I think that the Republican Party doesn't, they don't believe that the voters are smart enough to check the Republican Party's facts. I do. I think that voters are smarter than what the Republicans are giving them credit for, and that they'll look at the numbers and say, oh, here's the actual amount of voter fraud, and here's what the SAVE Act would have done. It would have caused far more problems than it solved. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I think that Alaskan voters are extremely smart, and they're going to see right through those lies and that propaganda.
Yeah, it seems like people are becoming more aware with politics, especially these days. I would say between the Biden administration, the Trump administration, there's been a huge surge of people getting more into politics.
Right.
Whereas I would say before that, I would say even during Obama, when I was during the Obama administration, I was much more ignorant about politics. It was more of a sideline type of conversation, but now it's more mainstream and more culturally infused to our DNA in comparison to before.
And part of that is our age. As we get older, we start to take an interest in those things. But there's that old saying, oh, you're not interested in politics? Well, politics is going to take an interest in you. And I think if you go back 10, 20, 30 years, the actions of the federal government had less of a direct impact one direction and the other based on who was in office. If you go from Obama to Trump to Biden to Trump, instead of having a slight difference from administration to administration, it's been wildly fishtailing like a rear-wheel drive car in the snow, and it's just out of control all over the place. And so people are feeling it. They recognize now, oh, it really matters who we put in office, not just the Oval Office, but every single step of the line, including municipal, state, and federal.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would agree with that. It seems like there's been an extreme on every single way throughout the 16 years so far. There's been extremes going left and right, left and right.
And actually, I would push back a little bit on that. I think there's been extreme right and moderate left. We have not seen an extreme left in office in my lifetime. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, they are moderate left.
Okay.
An extreme left, I'm not sure that we have an example of that in American public politics.
Okay, I can hear you. I believe when I'm speaking of is the culturally things have a pendulum flip and switch. Right?
Yeah, the pendulum does go back and forth.
Does
Yeah,
go back and forth.
And so it's a weird grandfather clock. Instead of going all the way back and forth, it just goes right, middle, right, middle, right, middle. It defies gravity.
It's defying gravity. I don't know how Newton will feel about that.
It's like the one in Willy Wonka's office at the end of the movie. He's got a clock that does that.
Absolutely. So how do you feel you're gonna? Because 2026 is going to be a major election year for Alaska in general. We're looking for a new governor, new Senate, new state representative. As a Democratic Party, what would you say to those who are independent, right? I could say for myself, I was a very independent voter in general, right? I don't really swing towards any political line. And I just really swing towards where the current United States government's at and how I feel that's impacting my life.
Sure.
And I'm sure a lot of independent voters feel that way too. What do you believe the Democratic Party has to offer that independent voters can go swinging towards voting the blue?
Yeah, lots of things. Thank you for asking. And I think independent voters are voters that want to make up their mind based, as you said, based on where the country is now and what the candidates say and believe and what their history is. In my opinion, that's wise. That's a really smart way to approach politics.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party, in my opinion, offers many good things in this election. One is a unified front. The Trump administration is doing things that are anti-constitutional, that are dangerous to human lives around the world. They have crashed our economy, and they have made it harder for us to afford healthcare and harder for us to afford our groceries. And so there is an organized front pushing all those hardships on us. We need to be just as organized and unified in pushing back. That is really important. And so as a party, we will be doing that by changing the tax laws, as I said before, making things more affordable. I think we also represent a true and deep commitment to following the Constitution. In the Constitution, our checks and balances designed to check the powers of the Oval Office, and this current Congress has abdicated itself of that responsibility.
I would agree with that too. I've seen a lot of executive power being brought apart from the executive branch and Congress not really doing their job to be the check and balances too, which I find really interesting in general is, why isn't Congress doing the job they're supposed to be doing? Is it fear that's the Congress is feeling right now? Is it they feel disenfranchised, empowered to do anything? I'm not quite sure where that comes from.
I can only say my opinion. I don't know what's going on inside of their minds and hearts, but from what I see from the outside, the members of Congress who are in the Republican Party are just complicit in the corruption and getting wealthier and wealthier every day they're in office. And the way to do that is to stay out of Trump's crosshairs. And so they are hiding and hoping that they don't get caught.
Yeah, I would understand. I even would see there's a couple of Republicans that went out against him too. I think of Lisa Murkowski, right? She's very vocal about her opposition against Trump.
I think she has shown courage and thoughtfulness. And like all Alaskans, I've got the list of votes she has cast that I don't care for, and several that I do. But as you said, she's one of the only Republicans that has shown the backbone to stand up and say no. Some of them have done so, but only after they've tendered their resignation. And that to me is like a little bit slippery. Just have the chutzpah to stand up and say, I'm really going to stand for what I believe in and face the consequences publicly.
Absolutely. So as we can see, there's Republicans such as Lisa Murkowski that are, from what I can see, is trying to fight for constitutional rights as a country, right? So there are people from both sides of the aisles that could work with each other to make a better state of Alaska, for example, or even United States. And it seems like there's a huge divide between Democratic and Republicans, right? And if you were to go and be elected as the U.S. representative for Alaska, how will you work with both sides of the aisle?
Yeah, in my career as a pastor, it's been about service, and that includes serving Alaska with people who disagree with me on hugely important things, not only politics, but also some deeply held religious beliefs that I and the people I'm cooperating with could not be more opposite in our viewpoints. But we still recognize that what we have to do is work for what's best for the people we're serving. And so we start by saying, all right, there's a disagreement there in those things. and also I love you, and also I love these people, so let's work together and move forward in that. There's that old saying, don't talk about religion or politics.
Right.
It's a terrible mistake. We have to always talk about them. If we don't talk about them, we lose the ability to disagree healthily. And in my career, I have become extremely good at disagreeing healthily and then working with people who disagree with my standpoints to work toward that common good. So if you take the most absolute right-wing member of Congress right now, whoever that is, when I enter the House of Representatives, I will reach out to that extreme right-wing person first and say, let's start building bridges now. And that might just start with me, taking them out for a cup of coffee or a beer and saying, let's get to know each other. And as you get to talking to someone, it's inevitable. You're going to find some point of cooperation.
Sure.
And so I'll say to that person, whoever they may be, we could talk about these 10 things that we feel combative about. But look right here. You and I both agree that taxes should be lowered on working class people. Let's start there and charge at it.
I hear what you're saying. And yeah, I would agree with you. When it comes to cooperation, I think anyone can find a common ground, right? Because we're all human at the end of the day, and we all crave for the same type of basic needs.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's what I find that we're lacking in Congress these days, is that we're not even looking at each other eye to eye, aisle to aisle, trying to figure out what's good for the best for America, right? It's more like what's best for our party lines instead.
Exactly. Well, as I commented as we were preparing to record here, I saw you're reading The Art of War. Yeah. And sadly, too many people look at our Congress as a place to apply those rules. And it's simply not. We shouldn't be looking at Congress as a battle against enemies. Congress should be more akin to family and neighbors trying to work together to make their neighborhood a place where all people can thrive, where people all have the opportunity to access healthcare affordably, right? Just like you would for your own family. Despite how much you disagree with your brother or your cousin, you're still going to say, I want you to have your medicine. And somehow Congress has become this battlefield where people are just yelling at each other and trying to harm the other party. But that's like my left arm trying to cut off my right arm. The body suffers. The whole of me suffers. And when Congress turns our country into that, nobody wins. Congress should not be a war zone. It should be a construction zone.
I would agree with that, and I do like the analogy of it being a construction zone instead of a war zone. And unfortunately, I would say in our culture right now, it seems that it is a war zone, unfortunately, and it's the rhetoric that's been put out, I would say by the Trump administration, stating that, those far radical left, they're turning our country against us. I'd see that quite often, is that there's always an us versus them mentality, which I don't believe was the intent when it came to how our founding fathers made the Constitution to begin with, or had congressional and the state Senate, or to have all the judicial, the congressional, and the executive branch. What's matter to be a check and balances for their fellow citizens to be able to work with each other,
right?
Instead of what we had before was the monarchy.
Although comically, if you get a chance, go back and read the letters that Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton wrote about each other.
They hated each other,
and they did it under pseudonyms, but they wrote hilariously insulting things about each other in public. John Adams too.
John Adams and Thomas Jefferson hated each other.
It's funny, right? Yeah. And so sometimes I think, let's get back to those old days where we got along. And then I'm like, then again, from the beginning, we were taking slaps at each other. And, in the Civil War preceding it, there were literal fist fights on the floor of Congress. So as bad as things are right now, I'm not turning a blind eye to the fact that things are bad. They've been bad before, and we can come through it, and we can correct it.
Well, people would go through duels before.
Right.
Yeah, they would actually go through duels. Andrew Jackson, he was famous for being the guy that would go, like, we're going to go out and settle this. And
So it's a
I
low bar,
die,
I know,
it's
but
fine.
I vow as a congressperson to never duel anybody.
I mean, if you did, it might be pretty cool, but
It would get press, but
it
not
would
the
get
kind of press I
It
want.
wouldn't be the press. Matthew Shultz challenges Nick Pagich to a duel.
No. And that's a great example. You picked out someone by name who, of course, I am his opponent. We are each other's opponents. And I think his policies have been terribly destructive and harmful.
Sure.
But I will not say something about him as a human being.
Yeah.
I think as a human being, I don't know him, but I have no right to call him evil or awful as a person. I can say his policies are awful and destructive.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that we can change. Donald Trump is big to insult people at the base of who they are. He's not just saying such and such has bad policies. He's saying that person is a horrible terrorist. They need to be killed.
Right.
And I'm not going to do that. There's a great old story about in a war where one side, I forget which war this took place in. Sadly, there are too many. Where one side had prisoners of war and an underranking soldier said we should execute them. And the other soldiers said, no, we're not going to do that. And the first soldier says, but their side does it. And the response was, they are not our teachers.
Right.
And so just because I see Donald Trump behaving like a maniac and like with absolute cruelty on purpose, that's all the more reason that I have to rise above that and be the better person and be the adult in the room, because we can't count on the Republican Party to provide that anymore.
Yeah, and I would say that it seems to me is that surprisingly people rally towards this unadulterated insult machine that Trump is constantly providing. People are like going behind it saying, oh, wow, this guy's speaking his mind. This is great.
Unfortunately, he is speaking his mind, and there's not much there. And so all he falls back on is the cruelty. And cruelty has always been an easy sell. You go back through history and you can see example after example of people who utilize that cruelty for the purposes of gaining their own power and their own wealth. And that's all Trump has done. And it's based on a shallow and immature misunderstanding of what strength is. They mistake that cruelty and they think it's strength, but it's not. It's really at its base, it's fear and it's selfishness.
Yeah, and I would agree. One thing that you did point out that I liked that you said you attacked the policies instead of the person, which is a very Socratean method of doing it. Right?
Well, me and Socrates go way back.
Yeah. I have his book right behind me over there.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's a long forgotten art to be able to have a debate without going at each other's throats.
Yeah.
Right.
And I apologize if I use this example too often on the campaign trail. I often feel like I'm repeating myself. But a really good example, in my opinion, is I'm a pastor. Right. My big brother is an atheist.
Okay.
And we talk about that stuff from time to time, and it's great. And that's what the world could be. We disagree on something that's so important and foundational to many people's lives. We disagree entirely on it, and yet we love each other. We cooperate. We have a great time hanging out. He teaches me a lot. He improves my beliefs by pointing out where I am self-contradictory, and I do the same for him.
Right.
Politics can be that way too. If we actually humanize the other side instead of dehumanizing it, that allows us to learn. And
Absolutely.
so I do intend to be learning from Republicans, as I have been all along, to continue in Congress to learn from the Republicans what really is at the heart of what you're trying to accomplish. Because I'll bet you there's a lot of that I agree with. If we start dressing it up in the culture wars, that's when it becomes a firefight.
Absolutely. And the culture wars is a very key point to that.
Yeah.
Because I feel the way I see it, at least, is that culture war is a destructive means to our country instead of being something we could talk about. Because everyone's different, right? Everyone has their different philosophies, their different theologies, and that's what makes America great in a lot of ways. And specifically Alaska, because I see Alaska becoming more and more of that melting pot with very different cultures, right? Especially in Anchorage. Especially in Anchorage right now.
And that is and should be promoted as a great strength, and it should be invested in. We should be looking at these cultures like there's in mid-May, I forget the exact date, but it's a Saturday in mid-May. There's a Hmong festival. They kick off their summer markets, and there's also that same day a Korean cultural festival. I'm going to do my best to make it to both, but I also am going to be up in the Matsu Valley that day, so it'll be a busy day. But what an amazing opportunity to learn and to grow from listening and partaking in other people's cultures. And we should be promoting that, not using it as a cudgel against some other entity.
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree with that because you can learn from different cultures. I would say that one of the reasons I feel more culturally inclined than I would say most of the others, most people, which maybe that's an extreme there, but I've gone to the other countries before and I learned from different cultures, which I think that if you're so in a bubble of the United States, you can't really see beyond what's out there, right? So if you can't see what's beyond out there, you really are missing a huge gap of the human experience.
Agreed. I think Mark Twain said travel is fatal to prejudice.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's true. You know, I had a wonderful opportunity long ago to go to Guatemala with Habitat for Humanity.
Nice.
And because of the way the work site was, I was sort of out in the public square making cinder blocks, and it's like a big machine that you fill it with the concrete essentially, and you have to like go slam with this big metal arm to put it in the form and get all the bubbles out.
Right.
Based on the area I was a good 1.5 feet taller than anybody who lived there, and white Caucasian skin, and I had long hair. I had the most nauseating curly mullet you would ever see.
Wait, how old were you when you were?
I was about 20,
Oh,
22.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. All that to say, culturally, I looked like I stood out like a sore thumb. And while I'm there just trying to do my work, people would literally stand there staring at me and pointing and talking to each other like, are we sure that's a human? Because
that might not be a person.
Because it looks like an alien. Yeah. And of course, they weren't really saying that. They were probably just
They're probably thinking it.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they've seen, they're as smart as we are. So I don't know exactly what they were saying, but
they were probably thinking about your mullets and why do you have it?
Yeah. They were probably saying terrible things about my barber. Like, how did that barber let him do that?
Oh,
what a
my
mistake.
God. What is this, the 80s?
But it was a great opportunity for me to not be right in the what is considered the cultural norm, which is how I grew up. Right. I was a Delta hand genetically. That meant that I could just blend into a crowd. And then there I was being the one who was culturally different. And so now if I'm here in town and I see someone dressed in a way that is not from my culture, I don't have any sort of negative reaction to that. I see that as this beautiful opportunity to learn more. And I'm also an artist, and to celebrate the artistic tapestry of their clothing, learn more about their language and art. It's a win-win-win. And the culture wars seek to trash all that and homogenize everything. And that is not the way to make America great. If we want to make America great, we have to first make America good. And the way to be a good neighbor is by loving people for who they are and celebrating what they care about and what they've grown up with.
Yeah, and I absolutely hear that. And I guess that leads me to an important question. What do you believe is the culture of Alaska, or the culture of America in general? What does that actually mean?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
I know we're getting off your campaign trail.
That's
here,
okay.
But
No, I love the question, and that requires an hour's worth of poetry, honestly, rather than just me saying one or two things. The culture of America and the culture of Alaska, where they overlap, you alluded to this before, the fact that we are so multicultural. There's the old phrase, the melting pot, which has some benefit to it, but I also in many ways don't care for it in that it gives an image of us all becoming even one and the same. I would prefer to say the Great American Stew Pot or jambalaya bowl, right?
Okay.
Where
adding some spice in there.
All these spices, all these ingredients come together, and they do form a commonality. They do form this broth that is the flavor of all that. But also, the potato remains a potato. The beef remains beef. The shrimp remains shrimp. I don't know what recipe this is now. I'm just throwing things in.
We're gonna put
the
some peppers
celery,
in there.
the peppers, they all remain what they are, right? They don't dissolve into nothingness as just the broth. They remain distinct and individual, and they each contribute something unique and spicy and delicious. So there's that overlap of shared community and also individual expression.
Yeah, I hear you there. So from what I understand with your jambalaya recipe, you're going with, every individual makes a piece of the whole stew, right? And so they can keep their individuality while being a part of a community. Is that what I'm kind of
Absolutely.
getting?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. And do you feel like that's something that's going on in Alaska right now? Or do you feel like it's a chopped meal in different sectors of the plates divided with dividers.
Well, first and foremost, I would be the wrong person to be able to cast a judgment on that or give a grade to that. From some of the people that I've spoken to who represent other cultures or ethnic minorities, I would say there's a lot of work to be done to be sure that people can maintain the expressions that they choose. And so that I would echo what I've heard from people in those positions, that there's a lot of work yet to be done. And of course, there's a lot to celebrate there too. We do, as I mentioned, we do have those festivals coming up, and they are able to do that without the government stopping them and without much fear of people harming them. But there are times also where people who are expressing their own way of life do have to face threats. And I'm thinking about right now my friends at Congregation Beth Shalom, when they're trying to simply express their life as people who are Jewish, they too frequently are on the receiving end of threats and vandalism and anti-Semitism of other forms.
Sure.
There's a ton of work yet to be done. And here's where I'll speak to where my career as a pastor comes into play in the political field. One of the biggest threats to our country right now is white Christian nationalism finding its way into policy.
Yeah.
White Christian nationalism is not Christian, and it certainly is not patriotic. It seeks to centralize and empower one ethnicity and one way of understanding faith above all others. That's against the First Amendment by far. It's also against the Ten Commandments. It's a rejection of both Christianity and American patriotism.
Very interesting. So you don't own the Trump Bible, that's what I'm understanding?
Hell no. What a horrible, horrible thing that is, and not at all surprising that he would do such a thing.
Don't worry, there's an actual depiction of him. It's great. Have you seen it?
I saw one where there was some riot going on that he exacerbated, and he's holding the Bible up, and he's holding it upside down, because of course he is.
Oh man, you didn't see the actual image where he depicted himself as Jesus Christ?
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, I spoke out loud about that on social media. Literal blasphemy, literally going against perhaps some like more than half of the commandments at once.
You broke like 3 or 4.
Yeah, and in some ways you got to applaud the efficiency to commit so many sins in one fell swoop. All right, you save
Look,
some time.
he was a doctor, okay?
Oh,
He
it's
was a
nonsense,
doctor.
right? So not only do you
he's a
have
doctor.
not only do you have the horribleness of that first moment, but then the complete lack of character to lie about it afterwards. I mean, come on. Stand up.
At least he
and take the hit.
admitted he did put that tweet up.
That's true.
I mean, at least
Yeah,
he admitted
that's
like
true.
there is some truth now. He did.
Yeah.
I mean, previously before when he came to the Jungle King, he said, "Oh no, that was an
That
intern.
was an
That
intern, yeah.
intern." No,
And then pick
whoops.
someone at random to fire. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
You
that
lose
guy.
your job.
You're
Yeah.
out. You're fired. You're fired. Right?
No,
At least he admits
yeah.
it this time. Oh yeah, I put that tweet up. I look great in that one. I look great. It's excellent. I look like a doctor.
It's insane. And I think it's been going on so long that I think the press has lost their ability to point at something and say, "Oh, this is absolutely mad behavior," because it's gone on so long. I think they're tired. But that, every day we see another example of him behaving in a way that is not fit for the Oval Office. I think it was last night or the night before. He was tweeting from like midnight until 4 a.m.
Oh, geez.
Over and over and over again, sharing other things, writing his own posts. Most of them were either overtly racist or easily fact-checked and proven false. And that's all troubling in and of itself, but also the fact that the person who supposedly is going to be of sound mind making terribly important decisions the following day, he's up all night long doom scrolling on social media.
Right.
That is dangerous for the entire world.
No, and I absolutely agree with that. And I don't know how he gets the time to do that too. That's a surprise.
Well, that's the thing.
part.
He's up all night, and then he's exhausted and making poor decisions the next day. No one can make good decisions when they're sleep deprived.
Absolutely.
And we can see how little he's sleeping because there's the public record of his tweets. He's up all night doing that. And there was an image online just today I saw where there are people standing behind him for a photo op, and it looks like he has nodded off. I have not yet fact-checked that yet, though, so it might be wrong. But I would not be at all surprised to find that he's falling asleep throughout the day or operating from such a position of exhaustion that he's just making poorly thought out decisions.
Interesting. Yeah. So one question that you did, or something that you did mention before, is Christian nationalism, right? And I would say about 15 minutes ago, we were talking about how politics and religion should not be separated, actually should be coming together. And I may be...
Oh, no. Church and state must be separated.
Church and state.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that people of faith should not be involved in things. I mean, that's like 80%, 85% of people in the United States have a religious belief. And so, of course, they should be involved. You walk into Congress today and say, how many of you are devoted to your faith? Every hand will go up. So that's fine. What you just have to do is make sure that your policies are not based on that. I will never vote for a policy just because my faith says it's good.
Right.
There will always be other reasons that are completely secular. A great example of this is SNAP benefits. So my faith tradition says if someone is hungry, you feed them.
Sure.
It's real simple and straightforward. That's basically the whole thing. If someone is hungry, you give them food. So to me, SNAP benefits are a great way to live that out. But if that were the only reason, I wouldn't support it because that's just religious. And I have no right to put my religion into policy. However, I mentioned my brother before as an atheist. Every atheist that I have ever met also believes that you should feed people who are hungry because compassion is something that describes atheists.
Yeah.
You know, and kindness and love. These are not properties of religions. They're properties of humanity, regardless of what your belief system is, including if you don't ascribe to any faith or belief system whatsoever. And so based just on compassion, I would vote for it. There's also an economic reason to support SNAP benefits, where every dollar we put in, we recoup something like $1.35 into the economy because people go and spend their SNAP benefits, and while they're there, they're like, oh, it doesn't cover, you know, this pair of socks that I need here at the store, so I'll get those also. So spending is continuing to take place.
Okay.
And so it's not only the compassionate thing to do, it's the economically, mathematically correct thing to do.
Right. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
No, there's someone blowing up my text, and I'm like, why are you? Okay, that's fine. Okay. She's just.
It's not an emergency.
No, it's not an emergency. She was just saying she made it to the spa. Anyway,
No, good.
sorry about that.
No worries.
Anyway, no, okay, I'm gonna remind myself to blah blah blah. Okay, so with the. It sounds. Oh, geez, Louise, that derailed me. 1 second.
It's all right. And I can kind of get the ball rolling if you like.
Yeah.
I have taught several classes around the state with the title "Stopping the Dangers of Christian Nationalism," and I think one thing that really helps is to define the terms. Christian nationalism sounds on its surface like something we could get behind. I'm a Christian, and I love my nation, therefore am I a Christian nationalist? And so we have to really look at what the words and terms mean in the context of today. Yeah, that's not
the
what
mission
it means.
statement, essentially.
Yeah, and if you look deeply at what Christian nationalists in this country are trying to do, first of all, use the full name. It's white Christian nationalists. It's always overlapping with racial lifting up of white people and keeping them in power. And it's only empowering one really small sliver of what it means to be Christian, a very small, I would say, sect or even cult within Christianity. And that is tied to an ultra right-wing politics and saying that the only way to be in their in-group that deserves to hold all the power is to ascribe to both of those two things completely. And so the circle of who gets a voice and who gets human rights within the Christian nationalist context, that circle goes from here, all U.S. citizens, to just the Christian ones, just our kind of Christian ones, just the white ones, just the male ones. And so by the end, you just have a really tiny circle of power. And that's what you see in Trump's circle of power.
Interesting. You know, one of the discussions I usually have is I actually had a really good discussion with one of my former students. We were talking about faith and religion, right? And from what it sounds exactly what you are describing to me is that religion can be used as an extreme and a very powerful weapon. What's more powerful than religion? Yeah.
And you seem like someone that knows your history. It's happened over and over again in history, which is why the Constitution is so clear about the freedom that the government may not prioritize or show preference to any sort of religion and will never establish one.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your view? There's so many denominations that this is going a little bit off topic. There's so many denominations.
I love tangents.
Yeah, this is a tangent here. There's so many denominations that say they're the true religion.
Yeah.
Right? Their doctrine is the real doctrine, right? And it seems like they try to have people flock to them, especially in Christianity, for example. There's a multifaceted of denominations out there, right?
Yep.
And it seems like it becomes, in the walk of faith, it seems to become more of a walk of religion rather than a walk of faith.
Great distinction. Yeah.
Right. And in that sense, I see we're talking about like Christian nationalism. It's a corrupting force to what the actual meaning of the Bible or Jesus's walk is, or was, or continues to be. Right. So, ultimately, is Christian nationalism about the walk, or is any religion about the walk with Christ, or is it more of just we want to have people flock to this so we can have more influence?
That is absolutely the right question to ask. And I got to say, if you asked Jesus that question, he would have responded with a parable that was really interesting and made you think more. And I'm not as good a teacher as he was. So I will simply say, I think your question is absolutely right. And every single person in every single church or faith community of any religion should always be asking that question. Am I being encouraged to grow closer to God or gods or the divine, whatever it is in that culture? Am I being encouraged to grow in my spiritual life, or am I being encouraged to strengthen and prop up this system of governance, even if it's religious governance just within the church? Institutional preservation is not the aim of what a religion should be. It should be each and every person becoming more loving as a community together, and each person as an individual growing ever closer to whatever it is they understand as the divine.
Interesting. Yeah, I hear you there. So how would you take that knowledge with you to if you do become the representative for Alaska?
Mostly defensively, because I feel like the Christian nationalists are the ones trying to assert their religious dominance and place their thing in the middle. I would not counter that by trying to put mine in the middle. I would counter that by saying no religion deserves to be prioritized here in the halls of Congress, and anything Congress does to address any religion should only be designed to preserve every individual's freedom of choice. Right. So that people can be whatever religion they choose to be without any type of governmental interference, with the exception that if your religion does harm to others, that should be stopped. Sure. If your religion is somehow going out and attacking people or not allowing others their freedom to leave, then those need to be addressed, because that's no longer about religion. It's about those other people's human rights as well.
That kind of reminds me of why we became a country to begin with. One of the core reasons, right? It's that we wanted to leave the Church of England, right?
Yeah.
Because the Church of England was a dominating force in the colonies, and we wanted to leave.
That was a big factor. Yeah. Right. And I'm proud to say that King George referred to the U.S. Revolution as the Presbyterian Revolt.
Yeah,
because we were running the show, man. And John Witherspoon, shout out JW, he was a Presbyterian minister and a signer of the Declaration of Independence.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
that's really
so.
Cool.
My denomination has some good street cred when it comes to liberty, and also the U.S. Constitution was based on the Presbyterian Church's form of government.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you would say that you have a inherited knowledge of how to represent, because you are Presbyterian pastors.
So I wouldn't say inherited. I wouldn't say inherited, because I had to really work hard to read all that stuff, and I put in hours on homework.
You're well learned. Sorry, that's a better way.
It was dry, man. They wrote too much back then.
They did write lots.
But yeah, I think within my system, the church system that I am proud to be a part of is grassroots. The members of the church elect a governing body, and that governing body makes the calls and makes the rules and is the boss of the pastor. I'm proud to be in a system that is a low authority pastor, because we've all seen what happens when a church gets led by someone with too much authority and a cult of personality. That's where cults come from. That's where abuse happens, whether it's physical abuse or sexual abuse or spiritual abuse, usually all of the above. In the Presbyterian system, we have strict rules, and we have the leadership in the hands of many, a division of power, like the U.S. is supposed to be if Congress is doing its job.
Which they're not.
Which they're not.
They're not, which is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
So it seems like, again, with your background as a pastor, it's going to work very well for you to be a part of Congress.
I hope so. Yeah. I believe so. And a lot of people, they attend church and they take it seriously, but they don't necessarily spend their time making higher level decisions of what is appropriate to assert your faith life into and what is not. I have very strong boundaries and very strong limits on what I allow my faith life to influence. And I think some people in Congress don't have the practice to say, whoops, it's inappropriate. For example, not in Congress, but think about what Pete Hegseth has been doing in his certain prayers, some of which come from Pulp Fiction, not from the Bible, right? Right. And so that demonstrates two things, right? It demonstrates how terribly undereducated he is in the Bible, but also it demonstrates that he has not developed inside himself a sense of self-limitation to know where those boundaries are. I absolutely do. I will be a fervent and ferocious defender of the separation of church and state, and I have thought these things through already in their entirety for decades now.
Right, absolutely. Well, next time Pete does go up, we should call his friend Quentin Tarantino to go up. Maybe that'll work.
I told my friends we should make a movie called Jesus Unchained. The D is silent.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, look, I am the head of the Department of War, but I'm gonna let my friend Quentin Tarantino come and talk. Yeah. He has more important things to say than I do right now.
It's
we'll get Jackson too. We'll get Sam Jackson to come up as well.
I would listen to Sam Jackson do anything. He's too captivating to not let him speak. But yeah, it's nonsense to see. Not only the misuse of religion, but the misunderstanding of it. Like I can understand someone saying they think the Bible is the Word of God. And I can understand someone saying, I've never read the Bible, right? Those are both valid positions someone might choose to take. Sure. I can't understand the same person saying both. If you think it's the Word of God and you've just never bothered to read it, then what do you really believe? Like if there were like a one-page pamphlet and it's like, Jesus sent this to you, wouldn't you at least read it?
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah. And so for someone like Hegseth seems to be demonstrating that he thinks that it is the Word of God, but he's also proven that he doesn't know what it says. And that is, to me, a strange internal contradiction.
But we could say he's a connoisseur of film.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's a connoisseur of film.
I'm a fan of the movie Pulp Fiction, too. So like I said, you can always find something you agree with somebody on. Go. I love the movie Pulp Fiction. So that's where Pete and I start working to find something constructive to build.
Beginning with the talk of Pulp Fiction. And then we'll evolve
into
something else, but we're going to start with Pulp Fiction.
That's right. You liked that scene with Ezekiel 25:17, which is not what it says in the Bible. But do you remember how the character Bruno found redemption in the long run, and he overcame adversity to find his way toward becoming a better version of himself and living up to the promise that his fathers had passed on to him? I can maybe twist Pete's direction that way.
Valid point. I wanted to switch the conversation to education.
For sure.
Right.
It's very important. Yeah.
I think, I work in the school districts.
Okay.
Right. And I find education it's an important cornerstone to our future. Right.
Uh-huh.
Because without the next generation, without cultivating, without nourishing the next generation,
mm-hmm.
we're not going to have a future.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems to me is that education has been cut so far,
yes.
Especially in Anchorage, for example. We can see here in Alaska how much education has been cut to and gutted, mm-hmm. and yet it's inflated and has so much money in it, but it doesn't have money in it, but it does.
Right, right, yeah.
And ultimately, when politicians are making the decisions for us when it comes to our education, federal and states, the people that ultimately suffer are the kids. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would add to that also the teachers.
And the teachers.
I think the teachers have been suffering terribly due to the short-sightedness of Alaska's educational plan. And I'll nuance this by saying a lot of the issues are at the state level. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't necessarily be able to address all of them. But I don't want to be dodging the issue because it's still so important. And there is a lot that can be done. But it would have to be the interplay of federal and state cooperating toward the same goals.
Right.
And so I do look forward to a Democrat being elected for the governor's seat as well. And so I would work very well with them to do what we can to, for example, increase federal funding for education in as many ways as possible, including but not limited to special education. I think that mm-hmm. is one of the ways that we invest in our future by demonstrating not everyone fits into the cookie cutter format of schooling. And there are brilliant geniuses out there that are not being allowed to thrive simply because perhaps they're dyslexic but have not been given the tools to address that because of funding being caught.
Yeah, and absolutely agree with that. The problem is that what we're seeing is that we have a system that hasn't grown. Like education's been mm-hmm. pretty much stagnant for since the dawn of education.
Yeah.
what it started with. Western education started with Socrates and Plato. Or
You're really
Plato.
pushing this Socrates guy.
I like Socrates. Plato made the first university, and that's really where it got started, right? And with the one of the phrases that I used to say is philosophia, which is the love of wisdom, right? And that's how he used to nurture his own students, right? And there's a workshop that I actually attended about 2 years ago, which really spoke to me, was philosophy and education, or wisdom, love, philosophia and wisdom. And what I'm noticing, and which I absolutely agree with this, is that we're not showing the love of education. We're
right.
We're essentially showing the textbook. We're explaining a textbook without really showing why you need to do said materials.
Or teaching toward the test instead of teaching toward the love of learning.
Exactly. Yeah. And that becomes I would almost say a hypocrisy in a way of what's originally meant to be. And so we're looking at, testing drives funding. And if we don't test as well, then we won't get the funding. So we're essentially removing the core of that human experience of what learning should be. And granted, it's very hard to have a classroom, especially now, because classrooms are going to go up higher because of the budget.
I know. Oh gosh, the teachers are going to have
it's going to be
too much to do and not enough support and not enough of anything that we should be providing. And I agree. All of what you said is true, including that structure of too many kids in the classroom and teaching only for the test so that we can get funding. It's setting up all the wrong outcomes. The good news is those things you mentioned are all things chosen by policy, which means they can be fixed and we can get them better. And I think there's an economic argument here too, which, let's be clear, I don't need the economic argument. I prefer the philosophical one that you just gave. That's reason enough for me, not only that the kids are our future, but also that the kids they exist right now and they deserve to be treated with respect and kindness and have food in their bellies when they need it, and be in a classroom where they can get some attention as perhaps one of 20, not one of 50. But there is also an economic thing where the better educated kids are, the better the workforce of tomorrow. You talk to some small business owners now, and they'll be quick to tell you that kids that are graduating high school and or college are not really so well equipped. And they, I believe someone was telling me in the National Guard, if they take a high school graduate now, they have to put them in I want to say 6 months, I might be wrong, but they have to put them into a training program to get them up to the bare minimum level of functionality to be able to serve.
Right.
And so by weakening education, we're weakening our military. By weakening education, we're weakening our economy. And that can and should be changed. The fact of the matter is kids that are entering their freshman year of high school now are preparing for a job that doesn't even exist yet.
This is actually very true.
And so we need to teach them to be able to learn so that when they graduate and they're like, here's your new job, it's director of AI dating apps. And so that Alexa can finally find a boyfriend. They have to be able to not just do that job, they're going to have to create that job and learn something that hasn't been learned yet. And so you don't do that by teaching to the test.
Yeah,
it won't be multiple choice. It's going to be essay.
And it comes down to critical thinking. We're not, as you can see, I talk about this a lot on the podcast, as the literacy rates is going severely down for young adults out there. And with literacy going down, so does critical thinking.
Yes.
And when critical thinking goes down the roof, well, then our government can go unchecked because there's no one to actually really think about the real issues anymore.
I don't know about you. You seem a bit younger than me, but I had classes both in high school and college in which they taught us how to read the news and recognize propaganda.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think that's taught anymore. And I think that benefits fascism.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Yeah, because if you don't have a civil or if we don't have a country that thinks.
Yeah. Well, Thomas Jefferson again, he said an educated populace is necessary for a democracy to function.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they knew it back then. And we seem to keep treating it as a burden as opposed to a blessing, this wonderful treat. And I do think this is one of the areas where Republican and Democrats go different ways. I think Republicans see spending on education as something that they're saddled with. We got to put money into schools. We don't like this. Let's get vouchers and let's take the kids out of the schools and let's privatize the schools. So now it's a money making endeavor instead of an education endeavor. Whereas the Democratic Party, in my opinion, sees it as an investment in the kids of today and the nation of the future, and much closer to that philosophy, that love of wisdom that you were referring to before.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that's, with the Department of Education being defunded and slowly fading away.
Well, if I am sent to Washington, that is going to be one of my priorities too, is building that back up, making it stronger and vibrant, and not only the practical steps toward education, but lifting up the value and beauty of education, whether it's through a college system or self-taught or homeschools or private schools or trade schools. There's so many different ways to do that. My son, they got a great education as a wildland firefighter. That's not something they can teach in high schools. I understand that, but it was education toward a job that is essential to our work as a country, to existing safely as a country. And that kind of education is such a beautiful investment in the whole society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Just going back to a little bit to our conversation about working across the aisle, if you do, again, work with, if you do get elected as our congressman, that's also, essentially having to try to find a balance with also working with our current president too, right? How does that work out for you? It seems like which I think is great, you are, but you're very adamantly against what's going on currently in Congress right now, and it seems like it's very difficult to make any pushes towards Congress to do anything these days.
What I'm able to accomplish will depend largely on how many other Democrats and independents are elected by my side. If we have a supermajority, there's one agenda. If we have just a pretty thin majority, that's a different agenda. But as I mentioned before, I will reach out to the farthest right-wing person I can to start building bridges. Same with the president. And I will reach out to try to find that cooperation. I will accentuate the positive where I can. The fact that there are icebreakers coming up here, great. I'm on board. Republicans, I think, as far as I understand it, were hugely important to make that happen. And make that happen, so good. Support that. We don't have to say something is bad just because Trump signed off on it. So I'm very happy to do that. However, that does not mean that I hesitate for 1 nanosecond to hold him accountable for his many, many crimes.
Right. And it seems like there's not much accountability anymore.
There's none. And I think that's one thing Republicans and Democrats as voters agree on. Not the ones in Congress, because they have fully betrayed Republican voters. But the ones that are voting, the Alaskans that are here who are Republicans, they believe in accountability. They believe in a certain amount of spending for the good of the nation.
Right.
They believe in law and order. And that includes everybody. I was so proud as a kid in my government class in high school being taught that in America, no one is above the law. It's time for us to prove that.
I would absolutely agree with that. That rings true. Absolutely. Is that what I'm noticing is, we're talking about the ultra elite, is that the ultra elite are getting away with so much crime.
Right.
And I hate talking about this, but the Epstein files is a clear example of crime being committed, and there's no accountability towards
You should not hate talking about. Well, I guess it makes sense to hate talking about it, but we cannot stop talking about it.
We got to keep talking about it.
Absolutely.
I just hate that it's a thing, because you can see there's a clear, even with P. Diddy, right? There's a clear class distinction to who are extremely wealthy. They get away with almost everything. And if you're an average person, they'll throw the book at you as hard as they can.
Right. If a person of median income had committed the crimes that Donald Trump has been convicted of, I'm not even saying has gone on trial for, the ones he's literally been convicted for, you'd be in jail forever. Yeah. And I think this is a great example, and I'll borrow the phrasing from fellow Presbyterian James Tallarico, who's running for office in Texas. This nation is no longer seeing a division between left and right as much as it is a division between top and bottom. And this is the working class versus the Epstein class. That's the heart of so much of the problems here. Our affordability crisis in America is because of corruption that the wealthy have purchased Congress.
Yeah.
And we need to send people to Congress that have the ethical foundation and the moral fiber to say no to those bribes when they come forward.
Yeah, and I definitely hear you there. And it seems like now the old blood of Congress is slowly moving out and there's new blood going in, which I think is a benefit, because things at least I would like to say, hopefully it won't go the way of Rome, but things are going to balance itself out
Yeah.
when new blood comes in.
I agree. That can be very healthy. Now, sometimes the new blood is wacky too, but I think that that process of handing over is a good reason why we have presidential term limits, and it's why I do support congressional term limits also for that, both the House and the Senate. I don't know what my number is. I've fluctuated on that, and of course that would be a decision made by both bodies. The problem is what you're saying to powerful people is, will you please limit your own power? And
Well,
that
this is
doesn't
what George
work.
Washington did.
Exactly. Well,
That's
no, he
what
didn't though. He did it by example, not by law.
Exactly.
We had to wait till FDR for Congress to finally say that's wrong. And yet it wasn't. They didn't do it to themselves. They said, yeah, president, you have limits on your power, but
Right.
not us. Right. And so I think the only way to get that to happen is to let some of those old folks be grandfathered in, because that's the only way they're going to vote in favor of it, is if you allow them to remain selfish.
Yeah.
But to the new blood coming in, you come in, you have a maximum in the U.S. House of 4 terms. That way it's 8 years like the president. And for Senate, maybe we say they get 2 terms, 12 years, a bit more, but it's okay.
Well, it's an act of service to be in Congress. It's not supposed to be a full-time career at the end of the day.
Exactly.
It's more of a, I don't like to say it's a temp job. I'm not going to say it's like being Ryan from the office, but
Well, I
it's
say that about
essentially-
being a pastor. I am the temporary caretaker of that congregation's pulpit. And when I'm gone, that congregation is going to continue to thrive and to serve. I am just now there to serve them, not to make myself some sort of powerful or wealthy person. And like you said, same should be the case in Congress. I'm going there to serve.
Right.
To serve for a season, and then I'll step away, and the power stays in the seat that Alaska holds in Washington, D.C. The power is not mine. And if I leave there as a super wealthy person, then you know that I have failed you.
So what you're telling me is that you're going to be there for a limited amount of time that you're needed, and then once you're done, you're going to hand over the reins to someone else.
Yes, even if term limits have not been officially voted in, I will follow that good example of George Washington and eventually step away. Ballpark of 8 years, I'm not sure, but one of the things we have to be doing as people of conscience is living by example. And the law doesn't tell you that you're not allowed to go to McDonald's and take all the straws. They're there in that thing. It's self-serve. You could walk in and take all the straws and walk out, but we don't do it because we know it's wrong. And so there's a billion examples like that of things that are not illegal, but we don't do them. And I think anyone that has been in Congress for more than a decade, we should be looking at them and saying, you've forgotten that you're there as a servant to the people.
Right. And I feel like that's one of the biggest issues with our government now. It's no longer about servitude like it was supposed to be. It's about being a career politician. And
Right.
It's like you said, if you see yourself as a career politician, you're doing something wrong because you're not supposed to be a career politician if you're serving the people.
Yep. Well, we mentioned this before about church. I said you should be about your growth and not about institutional preservation. In this case, the Congress people have been in there so long, the institution that they're preserving is themselves.
Yeah.
And this goes hand in hand with what I said before about corruption and politics. While they're in there, they're also trading on the stock market and making a lot of money. In the general population of the United States, I forget the specific number, but fewer than 10% of Americans are millionaires.
Yeah.
Fewer than 10%. In Congress, it's more than 50%. And they didn't start out that way necessarily. A lot of them did. But once you get there, they seem to just magically get these millions of dollars. How is that happening? It's a mystery.
The funny thing about too is that in the beginning, people would actually go broke being
Right.
in service of the government.
It's a sacrifice you give of yourself for the honor of serving your state. That's how it should be. I don't want people to go broke. I hope I'm able to still have healthcare while I'm there, But certainly, yeah, you shouldn't go there and get wealthy. And the fact that so many get wealthy, and not just wealthy, like being wealthy isn't like a shameful thing, but the fact that we know what their salary is because it's public. We pay their salary. We know what it is, and somehow they leave Congress with all this stuff extra on top of what their salary was, and we've gotten tired of calling that out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look at Ulysses S. Grant. He had to write a book to get out of poverty.
Right. Yeah.
While he was during his time as president, because he was absolutely going broke, he had to write a book to.
And so
to
we can correct that. And I think there's such an easy example of just putting all your holdings in a blind trust.
Yeah.
And that really takes care of most of the issues. And there's some other ones like not that revolving door between Congress and lobbying and some other things. There are obvious stopgaps The real hardship we have is that the only people that can create and enforce laws to prevent that corruption are the people currently benefiting from that corruption.
Right.
And so, again, we need to send people there that have a history of doing what's right regardless of what the consequences are. That's why I'm saying over and over again on the campaign trail, Congress needs a conscience.
Absolutely. And that's something I think we're drastically lacking these days.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. I would even say in our local Congress too, we're definitely lacking that these days.
There are some folks, I would say, I'm a big fan of the Alaska legislature in many ways. You know, like everybody, there's some parts I dislike, some parts I like, but they do have an interesting bipartisan coalition that you don't see in a lot of states. And that doesn't just happen quickly or easily or by chance. There's a lot of work and humanizing of the other side and willingness to compromise on certain things. So, you know, like anyone, it's easy to take swipes at elected officials. But I think if we hold our state legislature up against the behavior of other state legislatures, I'll bet you we will come away as Alaskans feeling really proud of ours.
Right. And I would say Alaskans are very proud people in general.
Yeah,
they really, I would say we look at ourselves more as Alaskan than United States citizens in many ways.
In some ways, yeah. There's a really, I would say, beautiful form of patriotism for the state level in Alaska.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I do love about Alaska in general, is that we're very patriotic, not necessarily about the United States, but being proud of where we are as a community, as Alaskans in general.
I would also say I'm patriotic for the United States. Now, how you define patriotism is, you know, people shuffle on that one, but I love this country so much. That's one of the reasons I am so motivated to protect it by giving like all of my free time to this run, because I think that our country's foundational values, and by saying our countries, that includes Alaska. If something's bad for America, it's bad for Alaska.
Absolutely.
And our foundational values of liberty and justice for all, they're under attack by this administration. And Nick Begich is over and over again voting to empower that attack.
Yeah, no, and absolutely hear where you're coming from that. And especially, I would have to see liberty and justice. It's absolutely, I wouldn't even say under attack. It's been gutted.
Yeah.
Gutted in so many ways. I mean, if you talk about the former, what was her name? Not Christy Nones, but oh man, why can't I remember her name at the top of my head?
I'm not sure who you're referring to. Sorry, excuse me.
No, the DOJ. Oh my gosh.
Oh, right.
It's not Christy Nones.
I'm having the same.
I'm having a massive brain
fart right now. Yeah,
it is.
So,
but
I know who you mean though. Yeah, and to see the way she behaved and ignored people's needs and ignored the victims of the expedition files, and now is refusing to go testify even though she has been subpoenaed based on a minor technicality. It's just a throwing away of our values of what it means to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and instead they're in it for themselves. And what we've ended up with is a government of the wealthy, by the wealthy, for the wealthy.
Yeah.
And that's why people like me are cutting back on our grocery store purchases. It's always kind of funny to me where they gauge the economy by how many new car sales there are in a year. And I'm like, no one in my family or circle of friends has purchased a new car in decades. I've never owned a new car, and I don't think I ever will. Even if I'm elected to Congress, I wouldn't spend more money than I have to. And I usually only buy cars because my previous one died that day.
Right.
and when I do buy the car, then it's based on affordability.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear that, and that's
not a new car, but like a new used car,
Oh yeah. I mean, I have a Ford Fiesta. That's I wouldn't recommend that car, by the way.
You wouldn't?
No,
okay.
No, would not recommend that car. If you buy Ford, you're in a disaster zone.
It's just an abbreviation for affordable.
Yeah, like found on the ditch.
Found on road dead. That's what it stands for.
Yeah, road dead. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hold up. Wait. We do not condemn the Ford Corporation.
I do.
Are they a sponsor for your podcast?
No, and I don't think they ever will be, nor will I ask them to be. Not anymore. Yeah. It's the ship has sailed right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I wanted to, I know we're getting kind of close. One thing I want to talk about too is that you were on the No Kings rally before.
Yes.
Right. Now I'm gonna say that you have a belief that Donald Trump is acting more of a monarch than a president at this point.
Well, that's take a lot to prove the ins and outs depending on how you define it. But if you remember while campaigning, he said, "I will be a fascist on day one," right? And if you look at the way he is trying to influence Congress to not enforce the checks and balances. And the times that law has been passed that he just ignores, such as the legal the fact that it was legally passed that they had to release all the Epstein files, and he's just saying no. Right. And so that is the action of a monarch. Right. Also, the way he's helping to purchase and influence the free media. That's the act of a monarch. Someone
even suing the media too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Suing
Many ways that he's influencing and pushing the media to only mimic his message, and anyone that speaks out against him gets attacked in many different various ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree with that. Do you believe that Congress and the Senate have a responsibility that made him have this power that he has right now, the executive branch? You know, as essentially as a monarch, do you believe they allowed him to?
Oh, absolutely.
To take this?
Yeah, the checks and balances only happen if Congress chooses to enforce them.
Right.
You know, it's like any tool. It doesn't do any good sitting in your toolbox. You have to take it out and utilize it. And Congress, they're either too scared to oppose him because they might get primaried, or they're full on purchased, or who knows what.
Or they might get a main tweet on True
Right.
Social.
Maybe maybe they're afraid of the bully. I'm not afraid of bullies. And to quote Steve Rogers, Captain America's, I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from. And Donald Trump is a bully. He just pushes on through and does what he wants and ignores the courts. And it takes Congress with courage to enforce those checks and balances and rein him in. And that's what I'm going to do.
So let's say theoretically a blue wave hits this 2026 season, the midterms, and a full, Republic loses the House and say the Senate as well. How do you think things will change from that point forward?
Good question. My first, it's predictions. Who knows? It's like trying to predict the outcome of a game before they play it. That's why they play the Super Bowl, because we don't know how it's going to turn out. But my prediction is that if it's a big blue wave, Donald Trump is going to start pulling him back in, because he is at heart a coward. And I think he won't be nearly as overt. And the first time he steps out of line of what is legal and constitutional, I will lead the charge to enforcing those legal checks and balances. I think that he and his supporters need to be shown, it needs to be proven that the laws and the system work.
Yeah.
That they're there for a reason, and they function, and they're proper. So I will not go outside of the rule of law to do anything against Donald Trump. I will only follow not only the letter of the Constitution, but also the spirit of the Constitution. And believe me, there is plenty there to hold him accountable. And so we don't, I would say, first of all, we don't need to go outside of those things. But Donald Trump has shown that he is perfectly willing to discard the law to get what he wants. I'm not. I'm going to get there, and I'm going to take only the third vow of my life, which is to uphold the Constitution. First one is my marriage vows. Second one's my ordination vows. And I've been absolutely strong on both of those. And the third one I will as well. And that means holding him accountable by utilizing the proper process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear what you're saying there. When it comes to, for those who voted for Donald Trump during the previous election cycle, right? And I'd see there was a lot of independents that did vote for him. Right. There's obviously a massive youth generation that voted for him too, and I would say to those voters, I believe that they're really starting to see the reality of things, right?
Yeah, I agree.
The
Statistics support what you're saying.
The evidence is actually being pointed towards, wow, we probably made a big mistake here. And from what I've seen from a lot of Democratic voters, especially on Reddit, which I know Reddit's kind of a cesspool of of a lot of things, right? The general attitude towards is, well, you're gonna lay in your bed, and we don't want to have you there with us anymore, right?
I don't know what you mean.
It's more like they are essentially stating that, you voted for this, you're going to live with the consequences. And
I see. I disagree with that.
Don't even think about coming to us, because you're just we're done. We're done.
I disagree with that. And, maybe I'll draw on the Bible as an example here in the story of the prodigal son. One of the sons makes a mistake and then comes back and is greeted with love and welcome and grace. And so if there's anyone that voted for Donald Trump, my first presumption of someone is to presume the good. They probably voted for Donald Trump because they wanted law and order. They wanted reduce spending in the government.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to end foreign wars. Donald Trump and Nick Begich, by supporting or hiding, has betrayed all of those things.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The government spending is out of control. The economy is collapsing. Everybody's life is harder. No one can afford anything. We've started illegal and unethical wars, and all the while working outside the bounds of law and order. So if anyone who voted for Donald Trump for those really good principles, they thought they were doing the very right thing. Let's start by honoring that motivation. That's what you were trying to accomplish. And now demonstrating you've obviously been betrayed. And all those same things that you value there, you're valuing law and order, you value affordability, you value ending wars. Those are things I am screaming from the rooftops. I believe those things. That is what I'm going to do to try to do. So if someone had voted for Donald Trump and now is thinking they're going to change their mind, I'm here with open arms. I think recognizing that things didn't work out the way you hoped, that's a sign of intelligence and maturity. And we all do that sometimes, and we move forward together.
Right. So how would you tell the Democratic supporters that this is the ideology you should have instead of pushing people that voted for him away?
Oh, I do that all the time. Yeah. I think it's foolish to try to just act like a school kid on the playground and go, yeah, right. That's it. I was right. You were wrong. That doesn't build anything. And I am interested in building this country and this state into something beautiful and vibrant. And you're never going to get there if you're behaving like a child. People who voted for Trump are not dumb, are not evil. They're our brothers and sisters, and we need to work together.
Right. And I absolutely agree with that sentiment too, is that we need to work together regardless of what party line you're in, because the only way we're going to succeed is if we succeed with each other.
Right.
Because, a house divided cannot stand.
Exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So my final question for you is, where do you see things going for you going to the future towards the election cycle? Do you feel like things are going to go in a positive that's actually probably a bad question, but do you think things are going to go in a very positive direction? Because I have not seen Nick Begich even step out of his chair to start challenging you on your run right now.
And I'm guessing he won't. I think when I saw Governor Dunleavy run, he avoided debates like the plague, right? And I would see Nick Begich doing the same thing. I have and will continue to invite Nick Begich to debates anytime, anywhere, at his convenience. I'll fly to D.C. and sit next to him on the bus if he's doing. He doesn't take the bus. Who am I kidding? He's probably never been on a bus. But I will meet him at his convenience wherever to debate these issues. My prediction is that he will never have the courage or integrity to accept such an invitation.
So you think he's going to be complacent throughout the whole cycle?
I don't think that's complacent. I think it's cowardly. I think he's going to run his race, but do it via public appearances only in front of crowds that he knows already agree with him.
Interesting. Oh, okay, that's very interesting.
That's my prediction. I might be wrong, and weirdly, I really love being shown that I'm wrong. That's where the growth happens. So,
absolutely.
So if he accepts one of these debate invitations, awesome, because that's what I want anyway, right? And so I will gladly admit I'm wrong, and we will move on to the next step. Or if he addresses crowds that disagree with him, then great, I was wrong, and that means our representative has more ethical fiber than I thought, and super, then we all win. But in terms of prediction, yeah, that's my prediction, is that Begich will not have the stones to face me.
And I guess that means we won't see a duel either, unfortunately.
Sorry, I won't duel anybody.
I was looking forward to a duel at sunset.
I can guarantee you I will never shoot anyone during this campaign.
No flip
I put a time limit on it between now and November.
No
After that, who knows?
We'll meet you outside. Catch me outside.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. It was a very great conversation.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, do you have any last words to the viewers before we sign off?
You touched on something that's so important to me. I am running because if it's going to be a duel, it's going to be either hand to hand, or maybe let's get swords or nunchucks or something. Have you ever seen the Ip Man movies?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's what I want to do.
Okay.
I want to fight 10 men. That's what I want.
There's a ring out there. We can find a way.
All right,
to make this
let's
happen.
do it. Let's do it.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, what I would say to the people of Alaska is I am voting because of my lifelong commitment to being of service to others. And that includes not only my family, not only my friends, not only my neighborhood, not only my city, not only my state, and not only my nation, but all people. I am here to serve, and at the heart of my campaign, it's what has become our campaign slogan, is love your neighbor. I'm doing this because really at a base level, I love you.
Good message. Well, Alaska Babble, thank you for joining us in this another episode. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. That's how we grow. And with no growth, we can have wonderful, wonderful guests such as you to come on. So take care and keep on babbling.